with the prayer. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om. Namaskar, bonjour, hola, bon dia, and guten Tag. Welcome back to our this satsang. We are considering the subject of material, the value of material knowledge. This is the second part of our discussion, and we were investigating the lokas. We said that there are many lokas, but we would be engaged with three lokas which very clearly come under this material knowledge. Sri Krishna tells us in the Gita, Abrahma bhuvana loka punaravartinaha Arjuna. O Arjuna, all the lokas up to the last, the highest loka called Brahma loka or Satya loka. These lokas are the goals, are nothing but spending your time and coming back to the earth, to the Bhur loka. Even if one reaches the last and the finest of all lokas, that is the Brahma loka, one has to come back to the Bhur loka. Punaravartina, they have to come back. One has to come back to this Bhur loka to begin the journey anew, afresh. But the journey continues. You know, in the concept of Sankhya cosmology, which Vedanta accepted almost as it is, there are 14 lokas. Just to satisfy our curiosity, there are 7 inferior lokas and 7 superior lokas. They are called superior lokas because they could be also used as a path to gradual liberation. Krama mukti, gradual liberation. The 7 inferior lokas are just the names. I am not going to explain them. Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Talatala, Rasatala, Mahatala, Patala. These are all inferior lokas, inferior to the Bhur loka where we are. And the 7 superior lokas begin with our earthly life here in the Bhur loka. Then we go up, Bhuva, Swa means heaven, Maha, Jana, Tapa and Satya loka. That is the Brahma loka. That is what Sri Krishna is referring to in the Gita. Brahma Bhuvana loka, Brahma loka. So from that also one has to come back. Now, I am not going to explain it in detail. Those who will have liberation in their mind, then when they cross the Swarloka or heaven and go to Maharloka, they don't come back. They will cross all these lokas and attain liberation. But those who will have the desire to come back to this earth or to spend time only, even if they reach the Brahma Loka, they have to come back. So that is why Sri Krishna says that punaravartinaha, these lokas are nothing but your goals from where you have to come back. So once again, let us remember what we said about the definition of the lokas. The lokas are our material goals. Material goals. We work for reaching those goals. We work for reaching them, hence these lokas are called karmachitan lokan. Karmachitan, these lokas have to be plucked. Chita means to be plucked by dint of our laborious work or karma. They are the result of our laborious actions. And here karma means work, not the law of karma, that is a different subject. But here karma also part of the law of karma, but here karma means work and vice versa, work means karma. As I have told you, we are concerned with the three superior lokas, like the Bhurloka, Bhuvarloka and Swaloka. The other lokas are a bit complicated to understand and do not come under the purview of our discussion, right? So this we promised. We are born and we will die. Suppose you are an American by birth and also by your upbringing. You are born and brought up there. At the same time, genetically speaking, you may be a Cambodian in your DNA evaluation in the ancestry findings. You may be a Cambodian. So you have two persons living in the same body. At first, by your affiliation and CV, you are an American. But your genes speak of you as a really different man or woman who is a Cambodian. Right? This is the truth about all our genetic findings. Most of us are like that. Two entities living in one body, in one personality. Someone said, I have been using the same water bottle for the last 20 years. Then he added, but you see, in between I changed the cap 10 times and the bottle got changed 8 times. This is the same water bottle. Similar is the case with this American man who has a Cambodian body. Who he really is can be a puzzling question and can be a very Vedantic question indeed. You can immediately see that you are not one person, but two identities merged together. Two different, completely different identities. Which one is the real you and which one is the apparent you? These are the questions. Well, we are not separating these two identities for our purpose here, because they are now connected. This is called Samyoga in the Yoga Sutras. We take them as one and evaluate them as the subject for whom our material needs and demands get their meaning. But that is the actor. And these needs and demands create our works with their goals, which are karma chitan, which can be arrived at by dint of labor. And this is the person who experiences the world or goes on to analyze its value or validity. Pariksya lokan karmachitan. That is the meaning. After having examined the goals, material goals, which can be arrived at or reached through labor or hard labor or karma, they are called karma sadhya, worldly goals which should be reached by your actions. They have their meaning and they have their utility. This we should not forget. The meaning is that they are not immediately meaningless. That is the meaning in all this temporariness. Temporariness means they have meaning for a short time. So the meaning is that they are not immediately meaningless. They won't become immediately meaningless. But from the standpoint of permanence, they are meaningless. Because they do not produce anything which has a permanent value. That is why they are called meaningless. But they have impermanent value, temporary value. That we should not forget. Vedanta never denies this relative aspect of the reality. It is the relative reality that helps us to search for a meaning or permanent meaning behind it. At the same time, they are not useless because they teach us in a very practical way that even though they have value as the means to reach a permanent goal, they are never the goal. They are never the goal, right? They are valuable means to reach a permanent goal, but they are never the goal. So therefore, lokan, they are never the goals. They can be taken as a means, and that is their value. This is the way the Upanishad tells us, this Upanishad, that a sadhaka analyzes the material goals, parikshya lokan karma chitan. This way, the sadhaka, the spiritual seeker, truth seeker, analyzes the material goals. That is what the Mundaka Upanishad says. Material experiences can be had through different means. And all these have been incorporated in the wonderful concept of Hinduism, which is called the Varnashrama Dharma. Now, there are two things here, Varna Dharma and Ashrama Dharma. We will engage ourselves with the Ashrama Dharma, highlighting it for the purpose of our topic that is being discussed here. Varna Dharma is being practiced by many countries in different names, and they are taken care of together with the Ashrama Dharma itself in this discussion. Varna Dharma, if taken in the narrowest sense of the term, could be a potent means or source of inequality. And is there a country on this earth which does not have problems of inequality? The truth is that the same purest of the existences, the Atman or the kingdom of God, lives in every human body, let alone the whole creation. This Atman is Pavitranam Pavitram Yo Mangalanancha Mangalam Daivatam Devatanancha. This is the holy entity which is the purest of the pure, most auspicious of the auspicious things, the Godhood of the gods. This is the God who lives in the created beings as the indwelling consciousness. Shri Krishna says, Bhutanam asmi chetana. I am the indwelling spirit or indwelling consciousness in living in the created beings. Hence, there is the living example that the inmost self is the purest. So, where is the scope for any inequality? The inner being is the holiest, and that is God. Still, we, the so-called scholars, spiritual leaders, people with authority, would find inequality between God's own creations. A sad reality indeed. Ashrama dharmas are, as you all know, This is a very well-known concept. Brahmacharya, Garhasthya, Vanaprastha and Sannyasa. So the life of a student is called Brahmacharya Ashrama. The period which we spend in studying and understanding things, both practically and theoretically. And then Garhasthya Dharma, one enters into that life, married life, Vanaprastha, retired life, and Sannyasa, the life of a mendicant or monk. This is how the Chaturashrama, four ashramas have been contemplated in the Vedic tradition. And this is how the scheme of the life of a Puranjana, a man, or a Puranjani, a woman, is planned. I am using these two words because they are very significant words used by the Bhagavatam. Either of these two, Puranjana or Puranjani, is the same American person with Cambodian DNA. These two words, Puranjana and Puranjani, occur in the Srimad Bhagavatam, as I said, in the fourth skanda, means fourth canto, from chapter 25 to 29, you can see wonderful explanation. Puram means the town, Pura. So Puram means the town. Puranjana is the generic name of any man who lives in that town, Puram. And Puranjani is the woman. They live in the town Puram, that is why their names are Puranjana and Puranjani. And they got married. Then they have the goals in life. They have to set the goals. They have genetic or biological goals, intellectual goals, and a goal that transcends the limitations of both these dimensions. That is why they are called humans. Right? Please remember this. What are these goals? We start with the first goal. It is neither a biological goal only, nor an intellectual goal only, nor a spiritual goal only. That is a goal of a student to learn about all these, some practically and some theoretically. What are these things? They will learn about the goals in life. What are those goals? Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha. So, we will go first with the Dharma. We have to remember that when we say Dharma, we mean the predominance of Dharma. But there is the presence of Artha, Kama and Moksha also. It is not completely set apart from all the other three goals. Dharma will help us to utilize all the other four goals according to the rules and laws of Dharma. That is why that is being taught in the beginning. So that any step we take in the directions of these three other goals, Artha, Kama and Moksha, that should be controlled and organized according to the rules of ethics. Artha means money or property. Kama means enjoyment, desire, fulfillment of desire, enjoying artha, enjoying money. And moksha. Moksha is the final liberation of the soul. So what is our dharma? I would refer to the explanations given in the Gita by Sri Krishna himself. In the second chapter, you will find that Sri Krishna very elaborately explains what this dharma is. And he places this dharma in the context of 5 different types of considerations. 5-step considerations. So you remember that verse in the second chapter, Esha te vihita sankhye buddhi yoge tu imam shrunu. Buddhya yukto yaya partha karma bandham prahasyasi. He says that this jnana yoga, sankhya buddhi, what has been explained. What is that Sankhya Buddhi? Means Jnana Yoga. And he prescribes a 5-step realization. And there he places this word dharma in the proper perspective. That is the one place where you will find this word dharma is free from all kinds of narrowness, pettiness. It can be used universally in any context, in any society. Sri Krishna says that the path of realization is a problem before a spiritual seeker, because the spiritual seeker has to face lot of problems when he or she chooses the path to spiritual liberation. It poses so many problems in the context of our apparent identity, the American man living in a Cambodian body. Sri Krishna says, when we face a problem, we have to look at the problem from 5 standpoints. Then only we will be able to solve it, and solve it according to the rules of ethics, morality, and such other things. So what are those 5 steps? Number 1 step is, at first he says, look at any problem from the standpoint of the Atman. Let me narrate those 5 first. From the standpoint of Atman, number 1. From the standpoint of Anatman, number 2. From the standpoint of Dharma, number 3. That is the place of Dharma. From the standpoint of Labha or Jaya, that means success. And from the standpoint of Alabha or Ajaya, that is failure. Look at any problem from these 5 standpoints. And we have to begin with the first. So the first thing has to be done first. What is first? Atman. But what we do, generally we start from the other side. What would be the gain and loss? Then from that standpoint we try to calculate our dharma or ascertain our dharma. And then we come to Anatman, and Atman is the last consideration. But Sri Krishna tells us, look at the problem from the standpoint of Atman. If I am a human being with a pure, conscious Atman living in this body, what would be my duty in this peculiar situation? That is very clear. Then you know what way you can behave. You cannot behave below your dignity. That is the question. That is the answer. They say if a dog bites you, you cannot stoop low to bite the dog in return. It is not possible. So he says, Sri Krishna says that from the standpoint of Atman, we have to look at the problem. And what is this Atman? This Atman is not a product, not a part, not a property of the body or your CV. The Atman can never be a part, product, and property of the body. And this Atman lives in the body, and after the death of the body or at the death of the body, it goes out of the body. It does not die with the body. About the characteristics of the Atman, the Isha Upanishad said, like many other Shrutis, you will get many such verses from mantras from different Upanishads. This Isha Upanishad says, Sapariyagat Shukram Akayam Abranam Asna Viragam Suddham Apapa Viddham, etc. etc. This part, product, and property, these 3 things have been taken into consideration in this verse. That Atman is all pervasive. It is not bound by the body, birth and death of the body. Pure. It is bodiless. It does not have physical body, it does not have subtle body, it does not have the causal body also. Body is nobody here. And it is without wound, without the network of the nerves. It is taintless. Means the asparsha, nothing can stick to it. It is untouched by sin or demerits or merits. Demerits or merits. Apapa Viddham, this is the word here which occurs here in this verse. And when explaining this word, Apapa Viddham, Shankaracharya says, Dharma, Adharma, Adi, Papa Varjitam. That is called Apapa Viddham. Apapa, which does not have Papa. What are those papas? Those papas are dharma and adharma, both are papas. Papas means it helps you to remain at the same place. It becomes a cesspool and becomes unhealthy there. So apapa viddham, it is never touched by either sin or merit or demerits. That there is no question of sin here. Then it is omniscient, because that is the conscious principle, and it transcends everything. And this Atman is self-existent. Self-existent. It does not have a dependent existence. It does not depend on anything for its existence. That is the consideration one has to think. And this problem, what we are facing, this problem is being faced by such an Atman. Then the second step is look at the problem from the standpoint of the Anatman, the material world. There are many experts in the material world who can help us in this. We too can help ourselves. And we, from the standpoint of the scriptures, we just look at these problems and see what is the gain and loss through this problem. And you will see always the gain and loss will be judged by a few factors. The total value of this Anatman is what? Karmachitan, Utpadya, things can be created, means produced. Vikarya can be changed. Samskarya can be purified, cleaned through fire or anything. And Apya, you can buy it just like a thing. So all these things, they are the characteristics of this Anatman. So these are called Karmachitan Lokan. These are the signs or indications of whether a goal is impermanent. So we are fighting for something which is impermanent. Then you will know as an Atman that this Anatman does not make much profit or value for me. So then you will evaluate the outcome of the problem from that standpoint. Then number 3, third step is called Dharma. This is the place of Dharma. After we have understood what is right and what is wrong, what is permanent and what is impermanent, then it is easy for us to decide what should be our avowed duty. Dharma means avowed duty. No one has forced us to follow certain rules and regulations. We do that for our own survival. So dharma is a technical knowledge to ascertain what our moral duty at a given circumstance or situation would be. That is being taught at a young age when we are at the Brahmacharya ashrama. So dharma is that we will be able to ascertain what our dharma is. Then the third is we have to look at the problem from the standpoint of jaya and labha, gain from our success, and what would be our loss or failure, the fifth one. So this is the first portion of our life which teaches us about the goals and how to approach those goals. Then this is practiced in the first part, and dharma, that is what is called dharma. And I said that this dharma always has, dharma is predominant, but it has got artha, kama and moksha together with this. A brahmachari does not live in vacuum. Brahmachari or a student has to live being supported by artha, moksha and fulfillment of desires. Number two is artha. Artha also has dharma, kama, and moksha, all these three things together. When we are using artha or money or property or such things, we have to keep in mind the rules of dharma and how much of the kama we can satisfy without crossing our limits and social limits, etc. And all these things should help me to achieve my final goal, which is moksha. So artha is never bereft of all these understandings. Then kama is means desire to enjoy your power, your property, everything, your body, mind, everything. So kama also has got dharma, artha and moksha, these three things included in it. These four goals are never separate from each other. Only one is predominant and therefore this name is given. But none of these goals are free from the ultimate goal, which is called moksha, liberation of the self which is in bondage. That is why we need the scriptures. They speak of the liberation of the self which is in bondage. And Puranjana and Puranjani are caught up in the Pura, in the town. Now the fourth of the goals is moksha, and that is not a material goal. Of course, dharma, artha, kama should be there, because those who gain liberation, and if they continue to stay in this world, they are not free from utilizing the values of artha, kama, all these things. The values have to be utilized. You need some things for the sustenance of your body which needs money to be bought. Like that. So we just do not discount all these things from the scope of moksha. Moksha does not mean that you just get out of a walled garden and you are never seen. Well, some people may go out of it and can never be seen, but there may be some people who would come back to help others, and they will enjoy or utilize the values of all these things. There is no harm or no objection to that. These goals are to be achieved by dint of our practices of karma, bhakti and jnanam. And these ways are said as these ways. Two ways are there to utilize them, and through karma, bhakti and jnana. We know those ways are very clear. One has dharma and moksha prominent. They are direct means for our living our life in this world. Direct means. We follow dharma and then we follow the path of moksha, path of the sannyasis, and it has a subtype which includes the people who are not formal sannyasis or monks, but they are also following this path of dharma and moksha. Though artha and kama also are there, they are there indirect, as indirect helps. See, material things do have a role in the scheme of direct liberation from the path of from the stage of brahmacharya, direct liberation. But artha kama should be there as help. That will help. A monk does not live just eating or drinking air. Pauhari Baba used to do, but I don't know how far 100% correct it was. But well, you have to eat, you have to live in the society to do good to others, you have to transact with people. Therefore, when in the second chapter Sri Krishna was asked by a very down to earth Arjuna, he was asking about a realized soul, what way this realized soul lives in this world. And then his questions are so funny, you can just see there in the Gita that this person, how does he speak? How does he move? How does he behave? Means He does not speak through the mouth, he speaks through the eyes, or not. He does not walk by his feet, but he is walking on his head or what? And he does not walk on the earth, but he is walking in air. Is it like that? So Sri Krishna, Arjuna is asking such funny questions about the Sthita Prajna. Sthitadhi kim prabhasheta. How does he speak? Does he speak in sweetest language like the cuckoos or the nightingale bird? There are funny stories about that. So Kimasita, how does he sit? Does he sit on a chair or does he sit in air performing magic? So these are funny questions. Sri Krishna did not answer any of these questions. Did not answer because this is normal. This person needs to eat whatever this person was eating before realization. He eats rice and eats more comfortably, free from all worries, etc. He enjoys his food or her food. So this person eats with the help of mouth, not through the ears. So everything is normal like a human being. Then Sri Krishna starts answering from a different dimension. Prajahati yada kaman sarvan parthamano. What a great teaching there. He is not taking up all these childish ideas and answering them. Oh no, this person eats like that. Oh no, this person walks like that. These are all childish things. So he starts with that Prajahati yada kaman. The person, when this person has gotten rid of all the desires, so yada kaman, sarvan, all the desire, monogatan, what are lost in the mind, etc., etc. So the first part, the path, that is a direct means of liberation from the ashrama, brahmacharya ashrama, that is also not free from all these artha, kama, etc. But they are very much subdued, taken as an indirect help. And the second path is called, includes all these four, but they are to be taken serially. Dharma, artha, kama and moksha. Dharma will control artha, kama in such a way that leads us to this liberation called moksha. The artha and kama, they are most explosive things in human life. It can turn any sane person into madness. These two things have got tremendous explosive power. And Ramayana is the story of kama and Mahabharata is the story of artha. Huge literature is written just to talk about this artha or kama. Two epics. So, this artha kama are disciplined by dharma and moksha both sides. And that is a path also, a safe path, of course, if we follow dharma properly so that it leads us to moksha through artha and kama. If we follow artha and kama, only artha and kama, then it is called crass materialism, the Charvaka philosophy. Body and material enjoyment are the values here. This is a pure genetic choice that are manifested in the evolutionary cutthroat competitions. And poor created beings are subjected to the wrong interpretations of the evolutionary laws. Struggle for existence there would mean cutthroat competition. And survival of the fittest also will mean cutthroat competition. And that is happening throughout the world like that. So now we come back to this word lokan, pariksha lokan, with that we started. Lokan means if the moksha is not the goal, if final liberation of the soul in bondage is not the goal, then the gatis or the lokas open up their doors, big doors. Jesus said that the narrow is the gate that leads to eternal life. And very few people walk that way. And wide is the gate that leads to destruction, Naraka. And it is wide gate because customers are so many. They are flocking to that into that gate. So the gate had to be increased. The company has actually created bigger gates. Because for realizing our freedom or moksha, we do not need to travel anywhere outside this loka, outside this life. Only when we follow the path of material goals, our lokas open up their doors. Then you have to follow the gatis, the pathways. There are paths leading. But moksha does not have any path because you gain liberation here and now itself. You don't have to run to some place. Only karma leads to repeated birth and death. Only karma, material pursuits. Jayasva mriyasva iti tritiya pantha, the Upanishad says. They are born, they die. They are reborn, they follow redeath. Rebirth, redeath, this is the rule. If you do not ask any further question, why should we do this? Pariksha lokan karmachitan brahmana nirvedam ayat. Until and unless this nirveda happens, we have to go through round and round and round this trap. There is no mukti from this. And then the second path is called karma plus prakriti upasana. That leads to Pitriloka. This is very clearly narrated by the Isha Upanishad, Prakriti Upasana. This is called Krishna Gati in the Gita. Shukle Krishne Gati Yete Jagata Sashvati Mate Ekaya Yatyana Vrittim Anyaya Vartate Punaha. Prakriti Upasana and Karma joined together will lead to a Gati which leads us through the path of darkness, through the path of ignorance, to another birth. Of course, to the Pitrilokas, but after enjoying some time there, then you come back and you are reborn. Then the third path is the path of karma plus bhakti. That is what is called yoga. Esha te bhita sankhye buddhi yoge tu imam shrinu. This buddhi has been explained in the case of Sankhya, means Jnanam. Now let me explain what it means in the case of yoga. And here Sri Krishna means yoga. Sri Krishna says that yoga means here karma plus upasana, devata upasana. These two things have to be combined. Otherwise it becomes only karma, then the third path, you are reborn and you re-die, like that. So that leads to Swarga Loka, and that is called Shukla Gati, Shukla Krishna Gati Hyate. Shukla Gati, the path leading the departed soul through light, through more knowledge and less ignorance. More knowledge and less ignorance. There is much development in this. And the fourth Gati is also there. From the Swargaloka, as I have said, one can attain gradual liberation or Krama Mukti by one's own effort and also by the grace of God. Sri Sri Thakur has said in the Gospel, many times you will see that at the end, Babu will call the employee to sit by his side, saying, "Come and sit near me. Are you and I different?" So by the grace of God also Krama Mukti will happen. Then the fifth one is a direct knowledge following the path of non-dual knowledge, and there is no gati after death. There is no gati. There is no going. Brahmavid Brahmaiva Bhavati. The knower of Brahman, knower of the reality or knower of the self becomes the self wherever it is. Does not need to go anywhere because there is no where in this. There is no time, no space in this. That is why the Upanishad says, who goes to whom? Kenakam gachet, kenakam bijaniyat, etc., etc. and their path cannot be found. Just when a bird flies in the air, can you find a trail of the bird's flight? It is like that. This person becomes Brahman wherever and whenever the realization comes. So these, excepting the last one, the fifth one, which speaks of Jivan Mukti or liberation when someone is still alive, are all karmachitan, they are all products of our own karma, our doing. So Pariksha Lokan Karmachitan. Now this way we have analyzed Pariksha, we have examined the goals properly. The Mundaka Upanishad began the teachings by explaining two types of vidyas. You can remember that two streams of studies. They are two because their goals are different. But look at this single word used to define two different types of knowledge. Single word. Both are vidya, knowledge. One has less value, another has got permanent value. That is the difference. That less value vidya is also included in the permanent value vidya. That is the value of material knowledge. The question was, Kasminnu bhagavo vijñāte sarvamidam vijñātam bhavati iti. That was the question the student asked the teacher in the Mundaka Upanishad. Tell me about one thing by knowing which everything will be known. Idam sarvam, all this cannot be known by any human being. That's what we said yesterday. All this cannot be known by any single human being. Hence, the student is quite intelligent. He is asking the teacher something different out of the box than material knowledge. He is not asking for this material knowledge. Pariksha lokan karmachitan brahmana nirvedamayat. That person, wise person, got discernment and got dispassion towards all this knowledge. We know what is the extent of this knowledge. Hence he is asking the teacher about something which is different than any one of us can guess. So he is not questioning the material value of the matter. He is not questioning that. It has its value. And also he is not denying its use for spiritual purposes. See the beauty here. Quitting material world fully, even for spiritual practices leading to spiritual goals, is not possible by any one of us. It is not possible. This world can be used as a means to get out of it, to go beyond it. This is the only means. You have to walk on the road, to traverse the road, to cross a kilometer. You have to walk on the road. The essence of Apara Vidya has been the target of this question actually. So Pariksha means having examined what? The answer is Lokan, the places of enjoyments. What are these lokas? Karmachitan, that have been reached with the help of karma, that can be achieved through karma. What does karma produce? It can produce things of impermanent value. How does it produce the things? It says the following the process of utpadya vikarya samskarya apya that we have discussed. It can produce things, it can change things, it can clean things, purify things, and it can get things. The ingredients of our experiences are asti bhati priyam namarupa. What do we experience? We experience asti, existence. We experience bhati, means manifestation, means consciousness. We experience priyam, ananda, And we experience two other things which cover all these three here. Name and form. Nama Rupa. Asti Bhati Priyam Nama Rupa iti Panchamam. Nama Rupa covers the Asti Bhati Priyam. That is why the Upanishad says Adyatrayam Brahma Rupam. The first three are the essence of Brahman, the reality. Jagadrupam Tatodvayam. The two others which come after name and form, they are the form of this world with which this world is created. They are the ingredients of this world. And these two are the subject matter of Mandukya Upanishad, particularly Mandukya Karika. It tries to eliminate the concept of this Nama Rupa as something existent, something which is a reality. They are not realities. So that is why the Mandukya Upanishad took so much trouble to explain this Nama Rupa to be non-existent ultimately. Then it says, as I said, that it says that the first three are Brahma Rupam. So Jagadrupam Tatodvayam, they are intertwined, as it were. See the word Rupam. Rupam and Swarupam, they are two different meanings. Rupam, the appearance, and Swarupam, the nature. As we experience Brahman as existence, knowledge, and bliss, and the world as having the name and form, then that is a dual knowledge. When we have both experiences, then that is what is called dual knowledge. Knowledge of Brahman and knowledge of the world, name and form, have to be realized as non-material to attain non-dual knowledge. Just to know that these name and forms, they are not true, that is enough. When we are seeing a bangle made of gold, the person who is seeing it as a bangle, he is a dualist or she is a dualist. And the person who is seeing it as a pure gold, in spite of the thing being a bangle. The lady went to sell the bangle to the goldsmith. The lady is giving the bangle with lot of care so that it does not break, does not fall from her hand. And she is giving it to the goldsmith. What does the goldsmith do? He does not care for the name and form of. He tries to weigh it to see how much gold is there in it. How much gold is there. So the drishti, vastu drishti, is from the utilizer. The lady is looking at the bangle as a bangle that she is selling. And the purchaser, the goldsmith, is looking at the bangle from the drishti, swarupa drishti. So the rupa bangle from one person became prominent and swarupa became prominent from another person. This is the value. These are the values in two different perspectives, from two different perspectives. Sri Krishna is saying the same thing in the Bhagavad Gita. That how occurs in this chapter number 10 in the Vibhuti Yoga. Yad yad vibhuti mat sattvam Srimad Urjitamevava. All these are my vibhutis, whatever you see, which has got the beauty, which has got effulgence and all these things, excesses and all. So that Asti Bhati Priyam, if you call it Brahman or call it Sri Krishna, call it God, does not matter. But when you are looking at the Rupa, then you are a dualist. And when you are looking at the Swarupa, then you are a non-dualist. Whether it is a bangle or not, that does not matter. But you see that gold as gold there, not as bangle. That is called non-dual knowledge. Material knowledge is necessary. But the knowledge will help us to know that these created things are changeful. These are their rupas. Changefulness is not permanent. So Someone commented that rebirth is not logical if you say that non-dual Vedanta is true. The other day I was listening to some lecture. So his problem is that the problem with such people is that they are not rational. It is the conclusion of non-dual Vedanta that rebirth is not logical. That is clear. Vedanta never says that rebirth is true. It says it is experienced, therefore we say it is impermanent, temporary, relative experience. It is not true. It is not logical. Vedanta never says that. Swami Vivekananda said, if there is any better theory than this rebirth theory or law of karma theory, I will accept that. But this is the best one. Hence, non-dual Vedanta is true. We know that the matter is changeful, the rupa is changeful. This goldsmith will melt that bangle and may make something else. Changeful. But gold will remain the same gold. And that is the view of the modern science also. Hence, even though material science is material thing, but it is true in that sense. So, the value of material knowledge is that it helps us to find that non-material permanent thing which is called ourself, our own reality. And when we go in search of that, then only we are worth the name Homo sapiens, wise people. Wise people who started asking questions about themselves. Thank you very much.